And you're good to go.
Great, thank you very much. So it's a pleasure to be here virtually here in California. I know most, if not all of you, are over in New York, so it's the end of the day, and I appreciate you being able to stick around at the end of No Doubt Being Conference the last couple of days to listen to me talk about the ADAPT homework system as part of Libretexts. Um, the What's on the screen right now is a URL in order to request an account. It's freely available for any verified instructor. So in the process of requesting an account, you submit a online uh, website that we use in order to verify you, and that will get you access to everything I'll be talking about today. And I'll share that URL in the chat when I get the opportunity in order to find the chat. So with that, let me get things started here and get things going on here. So if you're unfamiliar with the LibreText infrastructure, we have been building what we call the Libreverse over the last 16 years as a platform in order to address all things open, at least the goals that we have for addressing that. So in order to this is what I ask people if they are writing notes down. This is the only thing that you need to write down to master or get access to the Libreverse, which is our Launchpad. So if you go to launchpad.libretext.org, or you do a search for Launchpad in Libretext, you'll find it, and that will give you access to the ADAPT homework system. I didn't get the URL for the ADAPT homework system anywhere else in this talk. This will get you to it. So when you actually go to the ADAPT or to the Launchpad, it looks something like this. And I'm going to be discussing only this part right here today. There are lots of other parts associated with the Libreverse. Many of you may be familiar with the textbooks that we maintain, where we host somewhere in the order of 1.3 million pages of OER content that's freely available for people to use, adopt, adapt, customize, remix, etc., in order to suit your own purposes. But again, we're talking about homework and the adapt system. So before jumping into that, let's just mention a few things about Libretext if you're unfamiliar with us. And our core value is essentially this statement right here, recognizing that students are not a market to exploit, nor to make an excessive profit off of. And that underlies everything that we do. Libretext is a project that was born out of a precursor project called the ChemWiki at the University of California, Davis, where I'm a professor at. But has expanded much beyond chemistry, as many of you may be familiar with. And it's only in the last few years that we started to expand into a homework system to complement our textbooks that we host. So who am I? Well, I mentioned before, I'm a professor of chemistry at the University of California, Davis. I've been there since 2005. My research focuses on ultrafast laser spectroscopy of photoactive biological systems. Basically, I shoot laser pulses into proteins, watch them scream, and from that, identify how they operate. However, that's not what we're interested in talking about here. I'm the founder and director of the Libretext project. It was established in 2008. So it's 16 plus years old right now, so it's a fairly mature OER project out there. I'm the founder of the UC Davis Aggie Open infrastructure. And then I'm an adopter of OER, I'm an adapter of OER, I'm a creator of OER, and I'm a curator of OER. Basically, I'm a practitioner of OER, and the perspectives that I look at in terms of promoting OER is always through the practitioner's perspective. The classroom, the instructors, how it actually functions, and out there. There are many other perspectives out there that are equally valid or useful in the landscape, including a librarian perspective or a administrator's perspective or even vendor's perspective out there. But this defines who we are, not just who I am, but how my team views OER. And that includes also the homework system that we've been building for a while. So why do I do what I do? Well, I do what I do because it's a Denny's restaurant. This is a restaurant that is in Linwood, Washington. It's a suburb, northern suburb of Seattle, Washington, that used to have this truck parked behind this Denny's restaurant. This is important for me because for a significant part of my childhood, I actually lived in the back of this truck, oftentimes behind this Denny's restaurant or other restaurants that are out there. So I grew up poor, exceedingly poor, homeless, or housing insecure in today's vernacular. And what got me out of that poverty was affordable education. Affordable education at the K-12 level, thanks to the state of Washington. There's affordable education with a community college, again, thanks to the state of Washington, and to a four-year school, University of Washington, again, thanks to the state. I went to the dark side a little bit in graduate school to the University of Chicago and the University of Southern California. But then I turned back to the light in terms of public institutions, which it drives my whole perspective on things. The problem that I have right now is that education is not as affordable as it used to be. Anyone who's looked at the cost of education, even the last decade, a decade and a half, it can't be wouldn't be would be extremely surprised, which has increased, since I became a faculty member threefold at UC Davis. Education is becoming not affordable, or is already not affordable for many students out there. And in order to get out of that situation, it requires a bit of buy-in off of it. There was a thing in chat. I'm trying to see if I should be addressing issues. Okay, I should talk. My communication is a little bit slower. I apologize for that. And hopefully this will work a little bit better. If it doesn't, please let me know. So again, when I became a professor, I was part of the issues associated with affordable education and trying to make things more affordable. So the Libretexts mission is that we're implementing a community-built platform for the construction, curation, adoption, and adaption of OER that's comprehensive and can be curated at multiple levels. And these are important in terms of dictating how we operate, both within the textbook aspect, but also with our homework or other components of Libreverse. So community means that this is not a one-size-fits-all approach. This is an approach where anyone and everyone can contribute to it and basically capitalize on the sharing is caring model associated with OER. Yeah. Now, OER I'm not going to define because that takes a bit of effort in order to do and time. For the sake of this conversation, it means that it's freely available for faculty to customize and freely available for students to use. Comprehensive means while the Libretext and the Adapt homework system was born out of chemistry-based project, we've expanded to basically include all of academia, anything that's of particular interest for students in order to capitalize on, whether it's more traditional academia or workforce related. Even in K-12 landscape and graduate level landscape, we have an interest in order to be able to. We follow a no gap left behind policy where we try to fill in the gaps associated with our broad scope. We also follow a no tech left behind policy. That's where we integrate existing materials into our platform, existing technology specifically, such that faculty can capitalize on that and use it effectively in their classes. And Adapt is a good example of that. And the components of Adapt are a great example of that. And lastly, all the infrastructure that we have, technology and OER, is meant to be curated, constantly evolving, constantly updating. Anyone in academia understands that nothing is ever static. There's always a desire in order to update things, whether it's to fix things, whether it's to fix presentation of issues, or to just basically customize content to be of particular importance for faculty and the student population. So in short, what we're trying to do is to break the golden handcuffs that commercial publishers provide to faculty, and faculty will put on in order to get access to a range of resources that publishers provide, including textbooks, including homework that's aligned to the textbooks, including ancillary materials like slide decks, question banks. Now it's AI. And if you want to extricate the commercial interest from the classroom to make our education more affordable, we need to be able to provide alternatives to the full gamut of resources that commercial publishers put out. There was another chat reference here. Looks like the things are getting I'm in a poor spot of the room. I'm going to try to step away into a different area, and perhaps I have a stronger internet connection. Please let me know if I have a problem. And then the Libretexts project it hosts 1.3 million pages of OER content. It's the largest OER content infrastructure on the internet today, with the exception of Wikipedia. It delivers 1 million pages of OER content, and the Adapt homework system.
Hi, Delmar. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. It seems like you're cutting. in and out. So maybe if you don't mind starting up again when you find a more stable location, just so that we don't miss out on what you're saying. Oh, there you are.
Am I going in and out?
Yeah, you were going in and out, so we kind of missed a chunk of what you were saying.
I'm sorry about this. Was at the
That's all
conference
right.
center. I
Yeah,
chose the wrong area to be in.
Delmar,
Now I'm stuck in.
Shut your video off. You're on video stream.
Down into the lobby. Hopefully this will work. Does it sound any better? I'm sorry, what was that?
You can try again and see if maybe it looks like Corey said that maybe it would be helpful if you shut your video off.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully this works. I'm into a completely different part of the area, so
Yeah.
I apologize for this.
Yeah, you sound super clear. I think that definitely helped. Thanks, Corey.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so enough of the greater Libretexts project. Let's talk about ADAPT, which is part of what we're doing. So ADAPT is a project that was initially funded by the California Education and Learning Lab, with a little bit of support from the Open Textbook Pilot um, program from the U.S. Department of Education to build a infrastructure to complement textbooks. The idea behind here is to make things as flexible and powerful as possible that's out there. The URL for that is that you can view it at adapt.libretexts.org, but I gave you a link at the start of this presentation on Launchpad, which is the only URL you really need. When you go to adapt in the lower right-hand corner, there's an option in order to access the instructors. If you click on there, you can actually proceed with getting an account on the website. So I'm going to skip over this because we're having a little bit of time issues with connections. So the question that I have, or that we had when we started this project, was how to build an online home system that complements the utility of the Libretexts infrastructure that we have put in place. So it needed to be flexible, dynamic, comprehensive, embeddable, LMS agnostic, powerful, and free, or as free as we can get it to be, subject to sustainability and the costs associated with the instrumentation and the support necessary to do so. And the answer to how long it takes in order to do that is essentially a long time. So while we have been around for 16 years, we've only been able to have an effective push toward a homework system for the last 4. And thankfully, we've gotten pretty far with that. We're very excited to be release that. And underlying the development of ADAPT is basically the same OER in technology that is open source, relying on not reinventing the wheel. Or what I sometimes like it is the sharing is caring model. If someone has created something, you're able to take it and capitalize on it if the person who's creating it is willing to share it. So ADAPT is designed intrinsically for multimodal. From a technology perspective,
Hi, Delmar. It looks like you're cutting out again.
We have questions that are designed to be auto-rated, and we have questions that are auto-rated. You can't hear me anymore?
Yeah, you seem to be cutting out again. I'm not sure if maybe the original location where you were at would work better now with your audio off. Because you did sound a little better in the beginning. Just still muffled, but I'm not sure if that would be more helpful.
Okay, I will walk and talk. People are looking at me wondering what I'm doing, giving a presentation while I'm walking, but that's fine. Please let me know if this does not work until I find like a happy spot for you guys.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Oh, should I keep on walking?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that you sound clear right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to stand right here and not move. There's 2 primary types of questions. We have the auto-graded questions, and we have the open. The auto-grade questions are the questions that are designed for the computer to grade, hence the term. Open-ended questions are those that are designed for graders, humans specifically, in order to some external grader that's involved in. The open-ended question is the easier technology off of here because it's designed in order to facilitate students uploading rich text or files, PDFs, Excel, or audio.
Hello?
Audio perspectives. The autogrid relies on four different types of technologies. One is called WebWork, which originated from University of Rochester, which is a beautiful technology for built primarily for math and engineering. Complementing that is IMath.AS. IMath.AS is the technology that underlies MyOpenMath, or Lumen Learning's OHM system, or XYZ homework system. Those last two are for-profit enterprises, while MyOpenMath is a profit structure. H5P, which is a technology that came out of north of the Arctic Circle in Norway. It's a relatively newer technology, about 11 years old. WebWork and IMath.AS are great technologies for algorithmic capabilities. I can call in if I get a phone number. Does anyone have the phone number? One second, I'll pull the phone in. Should have thought about this before.
I'll check to see if I can find the phone number. Just give me a second.
Okay, thank you.
It doesn't look like the person that arranged the Zoom rooms is currently available, so unfortunately, oh, never mind. It looks like Joe has the number.
I just pulled those from the audio settings. I mean, there's no guarantee that'll work, but you can give it a try. I just pulled those from the audio settings as if I wanted to join by audio by my phone.
Oh, all right, let's
I
get.
just need the Zoom ID number here.
Yep, thank you so much, Joe.
Is there a meeting ID that's easy to find?
Looking for it.
Okay, thank you.
I just put it in the chat. I can just say it over the.
I'm fine. I'm typing in now,
Okay.
and then I just hung up.
Meanwhile,
I think it's coming. No.
Okay, can people hear me now? Okay, I can hear
yes.
myself. So
Yeah, I
Yes.
let
can
me,
hear you.
okay,
So-
so,
You'll have to shut off your computer audio. Just go to your Zoom.
yeah,
I'm
I'm getting there. It just,
Otherwise, it's going to have that effect of Gumby on the moon.
okay, so now I think we're cool. Why is this not? There we go. No, that's not it. Even after multiple years, I still haven't figured out how to use Zoom. Okay, so people can hear me, people can see me, we're ready to rock. Is that right?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay. I'm going to put out that headset. Okay, so as I was saying, the questions that are in ADAPT are designed to be either auto-graded or open-ended grading. And the decision that we made was not to rely on any one specific technology to handle the full scope of what we wanted to do, because no one technology is able to do that. That is, the technology able to handle questions in chemistry are very different than the questions that are in economics, or the questions that are in accounting, the questions are in anatomy and physiology and such like that. So instead of actually relying on a single technology, it's better to involve multiple technologies that have different benefits and different attractions and fold it all underneath the same umbrella. This is similar to how learning management systems operate, where they have multiple vendors coming in with their additional tools, and they're able to run with that. So we bring in 4 principal technologies. I mentioned WebWork, which is out of the University of Rochester, that came around back in the middle 80s. iMath AS, which is a technology out of Pierce College in Washington State. David Lippman built it in order to run MyOpenMath. It's the same technology that Lumen Learning uses for their OHM system, but they then ask for a bit of money in order to be able to operate, actually a lot of money in order to operate that. H5P is a different technology than those other two. It's not based around calculations, which those are well suited for, but it's more graphical. It has a lot of drag and drop and other aspects associated with that, although it does come with baggage associated with accessibility and security, which we could discuss if you have an interest in. And lastly, we have what we call native, which is the technologies that underlies our overall system that includes QTI. That's the last acronym going to be used. That's the protocol used in learning management systems. So if you have a question bank in your learning management system, you can dump it into ADAPT, and it's stored in the same database that has the questions that are in WebWork or the questions that are in iMath AS and such. So keeping everything together provides us with the flexibility in order to increase greater discoverability, and still have a greater, or at least a more centralized interface. So the students that are using ADAPT for economics or for anatomy or for accounting or that, they don't have to switch from one technology to another technology in order to be able to deal with that. So the underlying infrastructure for a homework system has multiple modules. So if you take WebWork, it has a technology around building of questions. It has a library of hosting those questions. It has a searcher in order to find those questions. It has a delivery mechanism. It has a checker mechanism. It has a grade book, and there's a learning management interface. Now, if you took iMath AS or its versions in MyOpenMath or OHM and things like that, it has the same infrastructure. For some reason or other, Zoom logged me out, but I presume you guys can still hear me over the phone, so it will come back up again. Right now. So everybody's still there, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, and you can still see the screen?
Nope, the screen is gone.
The screen is gone.
Okay. Redo the share.
I'll share it again. I was sharing the, how about now?
No, we still don't see the screen.
Okay, Zoom kicked me out again. Okay, this is probably one of the most technologically challenging presentation I've given in the last few years. So I apologize. I'm going to move to a different spot and hopefully the screen can come up. So the idea behind this while this thing comes up is that different technologies have their own modules in order to operate with. And what that results in is a difficulty for an individual faculty member in order to master these technologies because they have to master a wide range of them. So invariably what happens is the faculty member pulls up and focuses on a single technology and stays with that. Are you guys able to see the screen now?
We still can't see it.
On my side, it looks like it's supposed to be working perfectly fine.
You know, I guess if it's, you know, hopefully it'll pop up at some point. Oh, it looks like something showed up here with your screen, but it looks
Yeah.
to be black.
Looks like your desktop.
Okay, how about now?
That's it. Bingo.
Okay, yeah, bingo for now. Fingers crossed for everything else. So, so in order to master these different technologies, you have a range of different entries that are involved in that. So what we do is we bring them all into a single database and a single technology. So it has a shared problem library, it is a shared search capability, a shared gradebook, and a shared LMS interface. So basically the technologies that we brought in are gutted in order to be able to address delivering of a question and evaluating if that question is correct. Otherwise, the interface is the same interface across the board. That makes it easier for faculty across multiple fields in order to use ADAPT without having to learn about the particular aspects of each individual homework system. And it provides a better infrastructure in order to, when we update a feature, it can then be used across the board instead of having to limit it. For example, a phone app that I'll be talking about momentarily. So ADAPT can be used in several different ways. So ADAPT can be used where students can submit responses to questions either directly to the ADAPT website. Again, I gave you the URL off of that, and I can pull it up in a moment for you. I also have some pictures associated with that. We have the ability in order to take the ADAPT questions and embed them into our textbook. So now the textbooks become a more engaging infrastructure for education. Anything that gets students engaged is most likely in order to facilitate learning. And this is one mechanism in order to get students engaged with the textbook for your class. This can be within the Libretexts infrastructure, or it could be outside the Libretexts infrastructure that's out there. We have a phone app that's going to be released in 2 to 3 weeks that gives students the opportunity in order to use the technology that they're comfortable with. And about 50% of students who access our textbooks through the phone. So it's a native technology that is where we're bringing the homework system to the students in the technology that they prefer in order to operate with. But the phone app provides a secondary benefit in that it can be used for in-class polling capabilities. So basically, if you want to use it to take the place of iClicker or any other commercial product that can be quite pricey to complement the cost associated with the homework system, this is an opportunity in order to flip it around and use the same technology to take its place. And then whether students submit scores either directly through the ADAPT phone app or the website or through their textbook via embedding, we can pass back those scores to the learning management system directly via LTI. And if campuses have Canvas, we can pass it back through the API, the application programming interface, which is a bit more powerful than the LTI. So this is an example of embedding H5P questions into a textbook. This is an intermediate nutrition book from Kansas State University. And this basically shows that you can have your book be much more engaging by having these interactions that's out there. I mentioned the phone app. This is a video that showcases the phone app. It'll come up with an H5P problem right now. H5P, like I mentioned before, is a very simplified technology in order to be able to create the problems and throw them out there. But this provides a mechanism, again, to not just provide homework natively on the phone app, but to also provide it, and I skipped over that with the wrong button, to provide it as a in-class polling system so you can actually facilitate communication in the classroom. Again, the point is that right there is another expense that makes education less affordable, which is one of our primary goals of how we operate. ADAPT is a very peculiar name for a homework system. And the reason it's called that is because it has some basic adaptive learning capabilities. So adaptive learning in a nutshell is basically an infrastructure that facilitates different learning experiences for different students based on their particular needs. That can either be on the one end, a very technology-based AI, black box recommender engine-like thing, or on the other end, it could be a very open white box-based infrastructure, like based off of decision trees or learning trees, which is what we do. So instead of giving questions in assignments and courses in a more traditional way, we can also complement that with giving learning trees, where instead of giving a learning tree with a single question, at the top of the learning tree is a question, and if the student gets that wrong, they have the opportunity to go into the learning tree, which consists of a series of nodes, whether they happen to be exposition nodes in order to guide them for addressing specific things that they need to learn, or questions dealing with assessing whether students have mastered that exposition. It provides an opportunity for them to decompose the question to its constituent skills necessary to master it. This right here is a white box in the sense that you can look at it and you can understand how it operates. It becomes a choose your own adventure story for students to be able to engage with. And I like this over black box solutions for several reasons. One, it's cheaper to use. It's more likely to actually work as expected. But more importantly, from a pedagogical perspective, it provides a mechanism in order to enhance metacognition. Students have an engaged perspective here in terms of interacting with the tree, and from that, they can decide where they want to evolve in the tree based off of their understanding of the material. So they can decide, do they want to go down one path or another path that focuses on different sub-skills necessary to master that root question. And I've had very little, there are very few situations that we can facilitate metacognition in our students' development. And black box adaptive learning infrastructures don't facilitate that. They just basically spoon feed like babies, a little responsive to what they're supposed to do at different times, and they come out with less robust, less strong students. The second thing that's connected off of here is the engagement aspect. Students are actually engaged in their education. And the more engaged they are in their education, the more likely they're going to be learning from their education. And that's what you get by having an active, engaged infrastructure here instead of a black box, spoon-feeding, baby-based approach off of things. So let me tie that all together here. So we have a range of different technologies. We have that host about 250,000 questions already ready to go. Any verified instructor in the world gets access to our question bank because they're mostly OER and meant to be shared, including the solutions that we have expanded and spent actually a significant amount of effort to make pedagogically useful. Those questions are all folded into ADAPT. ADAPT you can actually embed into your textbook, or you can embed into your phone or use the phone app in order to be able to do. And then irrespective of how students submit their questions, you can submit it back to your learning management system, or you can keep it on the gradebook on ADAPT and then download it and use it for your own purposes. That's in a nutshell. A critical component of ADAPT is the Studio. The Studio is our repository for H5P. It's a freely available platform that anyone that has an account on the Libreverse can come in and create questions and use those questions in a formative sense, where you can embed them into your textbook without having students requiring to sign in, or in a summative sense, requiring students to use your textbook as a homework system. And that's freely available. It's oftentimes quite pricey otherwise. This right here is a snapshot of my personal class or account showing the chemistry classes that I teach at UC Davis over the last few years that's out there. This is an example right now of a general chemistry course dealing with thermodynamics. I think it's for my first week of my general chemistry class. And it's using right now WebWork, again, the technology out of the University of Rochester that was designed to be algorithmic. So every student gets a different question. It helps to reduce cheating and facilitates a more individualized effort, even though they can certainly work together in order to be able to guide that. We have learning analytics behind how students interact, identifying time on task, time in review after the deadline, analytics in order to try to identify students that are at risk that require intervention and such. Our open grader infrastructure was designed in order to facilitate open grading so that you can actually rapidly go through and evaluate the grading that's out there. There was a hammer in the chat. I'm not sure if that was a reference to something that I should be discussing, but I will ignore that for now.
That was a Zoom tool.
That probably had more of an impact on my personal technology than on Zoom, but yes. So this is an example of just the descriptive part of the learning analytics dashboard, identifying a specific student's performance in blue and the average performance for those questions in red. These things can be folded out and provide direct information to instructors about how they are performing. So there's a range of different technologies that we've brought into the platform. I don't have the time in order to be able to go through the range of them. I just want to talk about some of the new things that are going to be coming out that's a little bit more unique out there. And one is that what we've just released, which is our organic chemistry sketcher. So the technologies that we brought in are well suited for being able to create text-based questions and numbers and algorithms and varying, randomizing, things like that. But more graphical interfaces can be more difficult in order to be able to construct. And this just came out a couple months ago, and we're still fine-tuning it with additional features off of it. But it's meant in order to address organic chemistry, and so that our scope is not just in general chemistry, so that you can answer questions and pop them out there for that. That's going to be expanded a little bit in order to take a look at some biochemistry-based questions that's out there and a few other things that we are particularly excited about. Now, I'm not sure if there are any organic chemists in the audience, but one of the problems associated with organic chemistry sketchers is to be able to create an organic molecule quickly. And we're used to being able to draw them on a piece of paper, but it takes time in order to draw it online. So the phone app is going to be expanded and is expected to be released at the end of January with the opportunity in order to allow students to draw molecules in the same way that we would draw them before technology ran amok and before and what you do for exams and things like that. So you can draw on a piece of paper, use the phone app in order to grab a picture, do the equivalent of an optical character recognition infrastructure behind it, but not looking at text, but looking at molecules. And as what's on the screen right now, it can also look at objects and be able to track it out. For example, looking at that coffee is synonymous with caffeine, for example. I mentioned about the different types of technologies that we want to be able to include. Covers a wide range of different fields. One is that we're going to be focusing on very soon is something to address spatial organization of questions. This was designed for anatomy, providing the opportunity in order for students to be able to dissect out a three-dimensional model, in this case here a skull. You can ask questions like, what's the mandible? And identify it, or you can strip it apart and have people try to rearrange the structure in order to facilitate a spatial organization. There are many fields out there where the spatial organization are particularly important. Anatomy is obviously one of them, architecture, many other types of, actually some computer information systems require, like if you're building a computer where various components come into and such like that. So let me end with what I began with, hopefully a little bit clearer than what I said when I started here. We're implementing a community-built platform for the construction, curation, adoption, and adoption of OER that's comprehensive and can be curated at multiple levels. We're very excited with what we've done. We wouldn't have been able to do it without the support of multiple agencies, including the National Science Foundation, the U.S. Department of Education, the California Education Learning Lab, which is the conference I'm actually attending right now, and UC Davis that gave me the opportunity in order to expand these things there. Now, I was planning on going through Adapt a little bit with the time available, but I have a feeling that I actually burned up a lot of that time with technical issues. I'm happy in order to address any questions. If you want me to showcase any part of Adapt, I can go about doing that. But I thank you for your patience. I know it can be not confusing, but could be annoying in order to deal with presenter with these sort of technical issues. Any questions, concerns? Is it late in the day and it's time to go home?
I'd like to just say thanks for persevering through that. I know what it's like to have some of those things go wrong, and I know it's a real pain.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Delmar, for your perseverance, and Joe for your help, and everyone for your patience. It was still a great presentation, and we all understand there's tech difficulties all the time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, Joe, as well, for the help and the tips. That was very, very helpful.
Yes, thank you too. Thank you, Joe. I mean, not for me. Oh.
I don't know if this is a good time for questions, if anybody has any in the chat or.
Well, this event goes for another 15 minutes, doesn't it?
Okay, then why don't we do this? I'm sorry, I was completely out of whack by this timing issues. So let's actually go to Adapt.
Yes.
So I'm going to go to that Launchpad. That was the URL that I pasted before, and it pulls up this thing. I'm going to go to Adapt. And like I said, the accounts are freely available for any instructor in order to capitalize on. This is what it is now. I'm going to try to minimize this. Okay. And I'm going to log in and show you that. Oops, now that got bigger. I can't minimize things on my screen. Okay, there we go. This is the Adapt infrastructure. The first thing that I can give here, and actually this is a formative question, so I can actually paste this URL so you can actually play with this. Once I actually get the assignment here. Oftentimes I give this as a QR code, but the URL can be perfectly fine. And I'm going to paste this into the chat as soon as I find the chat. So it gives you an opportunity to at least see what it looks like on your computer, even though you're going to be seeing it right now. So I pasted that into it. So this is an assignment. This is a course that's called Demo, and it has a single assignment here. Is for a conference I attended a little bit earlier on, and it has 7 questions that are embedded there. And those questions range from web work to IMath AS to H5P to native or submitting a molecule, which is part of that sketcher. And I oftentimes just put these things up as a medley of different homework questions, although to be honest, I should have a lot more than just these here. So this right here is a standard Hess law problem. For those chemists in the room, you're quite comfortable with that. For those that took chemistry and didn't want to remember chemistry, this is probably something a little bit of pain for you, but it's a very simplified question that's out there. This right here is a graphical polar coordinate system that you can use in order to be able to address a specific question about rose petals and a few other things. I don't teach that myself. This right here is loading in a GeoGebra assessment. So there's a range of different technologies that come in beyond just the web work and the IMath AS and such that I mentioned to you that really augments that. And both Desmos and GeoGebra, it gives you those capabilities that are out there, asking a question about This is just shared derivatives of, or rates, sorry, that you get there. This right here is an H5P problem. This is a drag and drop problem where you are changing or looking at Arabic, and I presume this is describing the colors that you then grab in order to be able to move off there. I don't speak Arabic, so I may not be interpreting it properly. This right here is just a simple graphical user interface for just adding two matrices together. These are links that goes to different aspects associated with here. And so this was the mall view that I showed before. I'm going to skip over that. It's going to come up in a moment. This right here is a dissection page that I showed before. This was just added with a background that takes a few moments longer to log than just with the bare molecule itself. It gives you the opportunity in order to have something a little bit more pretty. For example, if you wanted to customize this with the backdrop of your campus, you could put that there, and it gives a little bit more customization and branding associated with that. This right here hasn't been integrated, but it's just a snapshot of the technology that we're going to be bringing in for doing accounting and statistics. That gives us the opportunity to use this spreadsheet-like infrastructure to provide something closer to what students should be using when they're learning how to do accounting using spreadsheets. This provides a mechanism in order to facilitate that. I'm rambling a little bit here because I oftentimes get guided through here in terms of what you guys may be interested in looking at. Or I can keep on moving through the different parts of ADAPT. Does anyone have any opinions about what they'd like to see at the end of the day here? While you're thinking about that question, I can at least continue on. When you actually sign in, we have access to my own personal courses and questions and learning trees and assignment templates, but I have the ability to do a search through the 250,000 questions that are out there. So when people have existing question banks, we can bring them in and integrate them into our platform so then everyone can capitalize on it moving forward. So again, if you have an OER bank that you've created and you want to share to other verified instructors that we verify it, this is a great platform in order to be able to do so, in order to ensure that students can find, or the instructors can find questions that are of particular importance for them. We have the ability to browse through learning trees. I mentioned learning trees before as an alternative to an individual question. This right here is a learning tree constructed at Cal State University San Bernardino, and it's meant for significant figures. So we have a root question at the top that students get. So they basically come in and say, perform these calculations with the correct number of significant figures. And they either get the question right. If they get the question right, then they move on to the next question, and that's fine. If they get it wrong, they have the opportunity in order to get a do-over if they actually spend some time in the tree. And it's more than just time. They actually have to have a certain type of engagement with the tree, which I'll talk about in a moment, in order to earn the do-over. And once they do that, they can come back up to this question in order to be able to address it. This question is algorithmic, so that the student will then get a different question, although it will have the same type of, it'll address the same aspect that it wants to be able to evaluate. So if the student decides they want to go into the tree, they go into the tree, and then again, the point of the tree is to act like a little mini concept map. To say, here's the questions, or here are the concepts necessary to master these questions, this question, which involves multiple components associated with that. For example, and I apologize for making a very chemistry-oriented example, the Nernst equation problems typically require mastering of multiple components, including cell potential understanding conditions, reaction quotients, balancing reactions, understanding what a natural logarithm is, which is not something that you can just assume is necessarily the case. And you can dissect each branch of your tree into addressing each one of those nodes that students can come in and say, well, I don't understand this, but I do understand this. Or I want to understand adding and subtracting, but I want to either get text training behind it, which is really simple, or it could be a little bit complicated, or it could be a video. They prefer to actually have a more engaging interaction than just text-based. Alternatively, you could even put a Socratic-based visualization approach or guided inquiry where students can actually work through something in order to come to the conclusion that you have there. It's whatever the students want, because the key point is after they get their exposition, whatever the exposition is, we have a branch assessment to evaluate, did they actually master that specific subset? It's a simple question saying, how many decimal places should there be off of here? And if they master that and they've gone from the top to the bottom, they can then come back here in order to be able to answer the question again. Or they can go through different branches in order to be able to handle these other components. That's the essence of a learning tree. Again, the concept behind it is to provide the exposition that you would give if you were a tutor for that tree baked into the tree behind the root assessment. It takes time in order to build these trees, but our studies show that students learn from these trees because we're able to evaluate a pre and post, because the students come in and get it wrong. They work with the tree, they come back and they get it right. So we can already identify that they are indeed learning from the learning tree, which is the whole reason why it's called that. We have about 250 to 300 learning trees that are available for people to peruse. Most of them are in general chemistry, although they're expanded into other fields or slowly expanded to other fields out there. And we're looking forward in order to continue this. Like, for example, looks like there's some Spanish involved here, and such. There's a bit more trees than I last took a look at. So we're very excited with what learning trees provide. And the more that we have constructed these learning trees, the easier it is for other people to capitalize on them and move them forward. Again, following the sharing is caring model associated with these things. The other, if you want to, when you get your account, you can do a search through public courses. We have probably 400 public courses right now that you can peruse. These are courses that people have willingly provided for the community in order to take a look at and to utilize for their own purposes. So if you find a course that is of particular interest to you, for example, if you're teaching from OpenStack's statistics course, you can come in and take a look at their the questions that are put in place here in order to complement that book and then run forward with it. Sometimes courses are aligned to books. Sometimes they're just aligned to the specific instructor at the specific term that they are using that course. But irrespective, it's an organization that gives you an organization of questions beyond just here's a question bank that you can do searches for, whether those searches are keywords or learning objectives or things like that. You guys are still there, right? I'm sorry I don't get much feedback in the mechanisms that we're doing. Are you there at all?
I'm
Yes.
not seeing.
Oh, okay.
I'm not
Okay,
seeing
I'm
anything
sorry.
in the chat or anything like that.
What was that again?
I said I'm not seeing any feedback in the chair or anything in the chat or anything like
Okay.
that. Sorry.
Okay.
But yeah, we're
That's
still
fine.
here.
Yeah, okay. And I have no problem boring you, but I just want to make sure that you're actually there and I'm not talking to myself, which I have done in the past thanks to Zoom. I can keep on perusing through here, but this is the lion's share of what ADAPT is. There's a lot more features as we actually use it that are not particularly important for this level of conversation. Hopefully you can see this, it's a powerful platform. We're very excited with what it's able to do. It's growing like gangbusters, and it's available for you to be able to tap into, to use. If you have question banks that you want to contribute to it for the community, it's great in order to go about doing that. And we welcome any feedback that people may have. And that's probably where we should stop the conversation.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Delmar, for your presentation. I think this was amazing. I appreciate your time. Thank you for your patience as well with the technological difficulties and everything. I think that's about it for our presentations today for the conference. Thank you everybody for coming, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you. If you have any questions or concerns, please just email us. We're quite open for discussing what we're doing.